Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Hope everyone's doing well. It's quite a cool morning here. Hopefully the sun will come out later on. I was going to have a wee chat about how, you know, in our world today, we face so much fear all the time and a lot of challenges. Fears of getting ill, fears of not having enough money, being abandoned. The list is endless. And we're constantly being bombarded, in the media, all different types, of the next biggest catastrophe that's going to fall upon us, and it can be very overwhelming, and it's very important not to let that in, not to let that get a hold of us, and for it to take over us in our everyday lives. And we have to be very mindful and aware of, how much of that fear is getting into our thinking and the effect that it has on us every day. Because when we let that, feeling and that thinking surrounding fear, if it gets in too much, then it has a real effect on our everyday lives. We tend to then sort of look at our world as a threat and people around us as a threat. And it can be different types of severity depending on, how fearful you feel about things. It's normal to have a certain amount of fear, and to have a healthy amount of awareness about what's going on around you. That's normal. But we don't want it to become where we become so fearful that we're afraid of everything and afraid of everything that's going on in the world. Is what tends to happen is, if we become really afraid of things, then we become very defensive, and then we tend to go on the attack. We tend to attack the world and attack, the people around us. The other thing is, a lot of the time we tend to exaggerate the fears. Sometimes the fears may be exaggerated when they're coming in that we're looking at, and then we tend to exaggerate them, and then if you're talking about them to other people, like workmates and family, then they tend to get hyped up even more. Or the other thing we can do is, try to minimalize it, push it away, or distract ourselves from our fears, through addictions or different things like this, avoiding what we need to face, in order to try and deal with it. But in reality, that's not really dealing with it, and we tend to have a very sort of false or unrealistic view of the fears. You tend to find that our interpretations of those fears are usually pretty unrealistic a lot of the time. And I think one of the things that I find quite interesting is we tend to always project our fears outwards, that it's something in the outside world, that's coming in and attacking us and making us fearful. And I don't mean physically attacking you, although it could be, but more so in the sense of your safety, and your stability, that sort of thing. But we tend to always sort of see the outside, that it's coming in and affecting us, making us fearful, where in fact it's the inner. It's always our interpretation of something that creates the fear and also creates the severity of the fear. It's not ever really the outside thing. We just take a hold of that, then we interpret it, and then we put the level of fear onto that. Luna, come on, baby. Good girl. Luna. So it's our view of the situation which depends on how we feel about it. That's what will bring the severity of the fear that we experience. So it is all internal, although we tend to think that there's something happening outside that's making us fearful. And yeah, there might be something happening outside. You could be having problems at your work or your family or your job or whatever. But our interpretation of how bad that is what determines our level of fear. Regardless, we have to be mindful of how much your inner world is experiencing to how you feel about a situation. The more fearful we get, the more on the attack we get. We become more defensive, not just with people around us, but also with the world in general, because we tend to put up barriers and blockages and we don't want to let anybody in because we're feeling fearful. And a lot of the time, we don't actually realize that we're doing this. We don't actually realize that we're protecting ourselves. But when you start to look closer, what you tend to find is the thing that is the worst of all is your own fear of going on the attack. It's a lot of thing. It's a thing that a lot of people don't think about because we don't want to be hostile towards each other. We don't want to be hostile towards our workmates or our family or our friends. And a lot of people don't realize is that when we do that, when we attack other people, we become fearful of ourselves, of how we are behaving. And a lot of the time we dismiss it or we don't recognize it because we don't want to be that type of person. We don't want to be a person who's afraid and then attacking other people or attacking things that are going on in our outside world because we have gone into a state of fear. And what we've done is we have started to reject love. We've started to reject love of our, world, love of the people who are in our world. And we've decided to put fear ahead of that. So we've closed ourselves off because we've become fearful. But the thing that you usually find when you take a good look is the thing that you're most afraid of is the fear of you attacking other people or becoming afraid of your world. Because when we become fearful, we start to put barriers and we don't allow love in. So, one of the biggest ways that you can stop fear is to say to yourself when you feel fearful, okay, I'm feeling fear, but is it grounded in reality? Where is it coming from? You know, look at the bigger picture and start to say to yourself, I don't want to feel fear, even though I'm feeling it, but I choose to reject it and I choose love instead. Because the opposite of fear is love. And if you reject the fear and choose love, you'll go from putting your barriers down to becoming open again. The more you stay in fear, the more you're blocking things in your life. And the more you choose to open up and realize that you don't have anything to be afraid of. You can't control the outside world. You can't control other people. You just have to keep a control of how you're feeling. And when you choose love, you're letting go of fears. You're allowing joy and fun and laughter to come back into your life instead of fear and anxiety and being on the defensive and attacking. Don't identify yourself as someone who is fearful. and who attacks and goes on the defensive. Start to recognize when you go into fear what's happening and start to say to yourself, I don't want to be that person. I want to be a person who's open, who's loving, who's happy, who's joyful. Because when we're in fear, we attack the world. But when we love, we're open to the world. And then when you choose to be open, then you don't have to fear. You've got nothing to fear. So until next time, take care.